Stormy weather can turn into a tragedy in a flash, leaving people and their animal companions in distress. You can be anywhere in the U.S. or maybe even the Philippines. How PETA is helping Filipinos during typhoon season on the PETA Podcast with Emil Guillermo. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On this episode of the PETA Podcast, PETA's Global Compassion Fund is the reason Ashley Fruno, a Canadian-born animal rights activist with PETA Asia, has been able to help Filipinos and their animals this year during typhoon season. Wherever you live, the lessons of preparedness apply to all of us and our animals during weather crises. As a Filipino-American, my first visit to the Philippines was during typhoon season when, as a journalist, I covered the assassination of Benigno Aquino 42 years ago this week. I know how hard the rains can come. But then there's PETA to help if you and your companion animals are in distress. My conversation with PETA's Ashley Fruno on the PETA Podcast with Emil Guillermo. Ashley, I guess we've talked before years ago. Tell me your title now. You are the Director of the Animal Assistance Program. So tell me what that means. What do you do?
That's correct. So basically, I handle all of PETA's direct animal assistance programs here in the Philippines, focusing on cat and dog work, mainly controlling the overpopulation of these animals because it is a crisis here in the Philippines. So our efforts here are focusing on rescue, rehabilitation, and then trying to make spay and neuter services available in indigent communities, as well as providing veterinary care in impoverished communities to guardians in emergency circumstances where they wouldn't otherwise have access to it.
And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because people don't know that through the Global Compassion Fund, PETA actually does this kind of work.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we're so grateful to have the support of Global Compassion Fund in this work because it is just so badly needed here. And I think people who haven't been to the Philippines or haven't been to parts of Asia couldn't really imagine the crisis situation that is the cat and dog overpopulation problem here. The same as countries like Thailand and India, we have similar circumstances there. But if you've only been to the US or Canada or Europe, you wouldn't necessarily be able to imagine the numbers of animals that are roaming the streets here and that are suffering on a daily basis.
Now, I remember when we first talked, you highlighted a family that was actually living in a cemetery. The housing situation is so bad in the Philippines in terms of affordable housing. People actually live in cemeteries, and there at the cemetery, they had an animal companion problem with dogs and cats.
Yes, and that's something that is still going on until now. So Metro Manila is a hugely overcrowded city and one that people also struggle to find affordable housing in. So there are families that live on the streets, there are families that are camping out in mausoleums in cemeteries, there are families who have informal houses made of light materials which puts them at risk for, fires and all sorts of other things. So definitely that continues to be a problem, and PETA's programs are here to make sure that if those families have companion animals, we can at least assist them with that aspect of their lives.
So we know there's a problem under the best weather circumstances. Now we have this typhoon that's come in, the bad weather of the typhoon. Tell me what it's done to the animal companions of Filipinos since the typhoon began.
So recently, we actually had a series of 3 tropical storms hitting the country in 1 week, which doesn't usually happen quite that quickly. So basically, some estimates said that about 80% of Metro Manila was underwater. So some communities had ankle deep floods, some knee, some waist, some were reaching, the roofs of the first stories. So there were tens of thousands of families around rivers who had to be evacuated because when those rivers overflow or dams break, there's a life-threatening risk. So many families lost their homes, sustained water damage, and this happens several times a year in the Philippines, unfortunately. And there was some people in Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces who lost their lives, and then there were definitely hundreds of animals who were also sadly killed.
So I know that August we're coming into this is sort of like peak season for typhoon season. So it's just beginning and it's probably going to get worse. But tell me about I know dozens of lives have been lost. Tell me about the animal situation and what you are doing, what PETA is doing to try to alleviate, with the situation, the bad situation.
So the number one focus of ours is to try to get information out to people to make sure that they know if they have to evacuate, never to leave their companion animals. So fortunately, there is a greater response amongst local government units to allow companion animals in evacuation centers. That's something that's definitely improved from recent years. So making people aware that they can actually bring their companion animals when they evacuate, and if there is an emergency situation where they're not able to bring their animal for whatever reason, the very least thing that they can do is make sure that their animal is not caged or is not chained. Because we've seen so many heartbreaking situations in relief where we come across the bloated bodies of dogs lying in the mud with their chains still attached to their neck. So there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing that, because you know that that animal fought for their life, was trying to swim for their life, and literally that chain was the force that drowned them. So we're really working hard to make sure that Filipinos know that they can bring their animals when they evacuate, to make sure that they have a plan in place for evacuation for their companion animals. And again, at the very least, making sure that they're not caged or tied.
Tell me about some of the situations that you've been involved in since the bad weather, and give me an eyewitness account of what you've seen.
So we're distributing cat and dog food at evacuation centers. So we were visiting communities in San Mateo, Rizal. So Rizal is a province outside of Metro Manila that is always heavily flooded. We were fortunate to see there was many dogs and cats who were staying with their families at evacuation centers, which is always really heartwarming to see that more and more people are bringing their animals with them when they evacuate. So we were able to hand out hundreds of packs of dog and cat food to those animals. And we also visited inside the communities to survey the situation and assist people who were helping to, or who were already working on cleaning up their houses. And that's when we come across the bodies of dogs and cats who sadly didn't make it. So we were, on one hand, there was many heartwarming stories talking to people who made the responsible choice to bring their cats and dogs with them when they evacuated. And then, sad to say, on the other hand, we did see many dogs and cats who sadly perished as a result of being left behind or being caged or chained when their families fled.
Do you have any sense of the numbers that PETA has helped in terms of the humans and the animal companions?
But with this recent storm, we assisted over 300 families who have cats and dogs, and that's a typical number for any type of storm response that we do. And of course, like you were saying, this happens pretty routinely in the Philippines. So after every storm, we're assisting around that many families. So I would say our disaster team response, we probably go out about 4 to 5 times a year, just depending on what happens in Metro Manila and the surrounding area.
Tell me about the difficulty to get around. I mean, you were outside Metro Manila. The roads must not have been as easy to cross, considering the weather. Even in the best of times, they're not as easy to cross. How difficult was it to do what you needed to do?
Definitely, whenever we're doing disaster response, we expect that things are not going to be easy. So in Metro Manila, at the best of times, there's very heavy traffic. But after any type of flood, the traffic is way worse. So be prepared for very, very long travel time, having to wade through mud, very dirty water to get to the communities that we are trying to reach. And then also being aware of the threat of leptospirosis, both for people and animals. So that is a disease that is spread in the urine of rats. And it's very, very common after floods for people and both people and animals to get that disease because obviously the rat pee is then saturated in the flood waters and it makes transmission very easy.
So is it mostly dogs and cats you're saving, as well as other species?
Definitely mostly dogs and cats. This year we haven't had any other species who we've seen been affected by the floods, but there have been situations in the past where we have assisted with rabbits and birds and other animals we've come across as well.
How about as far as wild animals? Any wild animals?
Within Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces, generally the wildlife isn't like there isn't a lot of wild animals in the city. But of course, if we come across any animal in need, we would do whatever we have to be able to help that animal.
And tell me about the maybe the most difficult or the most dramatic rescue you encountered with these with this recent bad weather.
I would say the most dramatic rescues that we've done in relation to the typhoons would not be this year, but there was a typhoon a couple of years ago in which one subdivision in San Mateo, Rizal, was flooded up to the second story. So it was a very, very, very severe flood and it came on very quickly. People were caught very unprepared and had to be rescued by the local government. And during that typhoon, we found a ton of animals stuck on roofs. So basically, dogs and cats who were free roaming were able to swim to nearby roofs and shelter there until the floods receded. But once that happened, they were essentially stuck on the roofs. So during that typhoon, we pulled so many dogs and cats off roofs and were able to reunite them with their owners. But there was one case in which we weren't able to locate the owner of the dog. So we ended up taking that dog into custody and then hanging up posters around the community, hoping that we'd be able to find the owner. And fortunately, that guardian did step forward, and there was a very, very, very joyous reunion between them. She was so relieved. The dog was found several blocks from where their house was, so they're not quite sure how he exactly got there, if he swam that distance. But definitely she was very, very happy to have him back. And we were able to get the dog, his name was Pochi, neutered and vaccinated as well before he was returned to his grateful guardian.
So let's talk about this current situation. Have the waters receded, and are people able to go back, or is it going to be tough for the people and their companion animals?
So sad to say, because this happens very often in the Philippines, people have almost gotten used to this. So I know it's something that it's kind of hard for us to imagine, in America and Canada, it's not something that we could ever think about happening to us several times a year. But Filipinos are very resilient and very accustomed to this type of weather conditions. So within days after the flooding, life sort of returns to normal. Yeah, people were staying in evacuation centers 3 to 5 days after the floods, but basically cleanup starts immediately as soon as the waters recede, and then life just goes on.
And so that's where we're at now in the Philippines.
Yes, essentially we have sunny skies today and we have had them for the past few days, and hoping that that weather trend does continue, but like you said, it is rainy season. So definitely we will be facing more such storms in the future, which is why we're so grateful to the Global Compassion Fund for their continued support to allow us to respond to disasters like this.
Now, is there anything that people listening can do to help? I know we mentioned the Global Compassion Fund, but is there anything um, that people that our listeners can do?
Well, like you said, the number one thing is to make a donation to the Global Compassion Fund to support PETA's work, not just in the Philippines, but all around the world. And the second thing is, no matter where you live, just to make sure that you have a plan in place in case of a natural disaster, because no community or no city or town is truly immune to natural disasters, whether it be fires or earthquakes. So just making sure that you have an emergency kit prepared for your companion animal, that you've thought about how you can help stray animals in your community if such a disaster occurs.
And that's good to know. Ashley, I've talked to you before, You've been in the Philippines now. How many years now?
I've been in the Philippines for 18 years.
Oh my goodness. So when I first talked to you, you were probably, you're a veteran of sorts already. Now you're practically an adopted Filipino. Is that how you feel sometimes?
That is how I feel. So even though I am actually from Canada, the Philippines is definitely my home. So I always say that my heart is really here. My heart is really in this work. And, I stay because I really value it and find it to be important and think that, in the Philippines, the animals and the people are worth fighting for.
It's funny. I was just in the most Filipino part of Canada by percentage, and you know what that is. It's Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Really?
Yes, I was just there, and all the Filipinos were saying, "Oh, it's just a matter of luck that my father comes to America and their fathers go to Canada, the luck and timing." But yeah, I was just there in Canada, and of course, bad weather is a thing, and the Filipinos are in Manitoba, where it can get to -35, -40. So it was interesting being there. But back to you in the Philippines. When I first talked to you, we talked about that situation about how Filipinos and their relationship to their animal companions weren't quite the same as, say, it would be in the US or Canada. And you have seen an evolution, I'm sure, in terms of how Filipinos care and really, I mean, how the idea of an animal companion, the importance of the animal companion has become to a Filipino family.
That's so true, and it's something that I think about a lot because when I first moved here and when PETA first started our spay and neuter projects in indigent communities, it was so difficult to convince people to spay or neuter. People were
Mhm.
just so not receptive to this. And now every single month, PETA is holding one or two clinics. We're usually spaying or neutering 800 to 1,000 animals for free in indigent communities every single month, and we just have never ending wait lists for this service. So more and more people are aware of how to be a responsible animal guardian. They value their companion animals so much more than they did, 10 or even 5 years ago. And I really feel that we are seeing so much change, even like we were saying earlier, even with the local government units allowing companion animals into evacuation centers. That's huge. That's something that we didn't even see 3 years ago. So definitely times are changing. People are more and more aware of animal welfare issues and animal rights. And there definitely is also an increase in the fight against animal cruelty. So that's something that's just been really amazing to watch the country's evolution towards.
Yeah, and because at the very beginning, when I remember talking to you, you were saying how it was just a change to get people to not bring an animal to the butcher and to bring the animal to get help, or animals had a totally different animals were seen in a totally different way in their lives. I mean, it's like almost 180, I would say, from what you've just described.
Definitely, yeah, definitely continues to change and evolve, and that's not to say that the fight is over or the fight has been won here because I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of changing minds and opening hearts to dogs and cats. But I also see that with the younger generation, they're so much more aware of animal cruelty and how animals should be treated. We have seen definitely an increase in people reporting animal cruelty or being willing to take a stand against it to actually speak up and stop what's occurring. So definitely that's beyond encouraging and something that I look forward to seeing even more of.
Yeah, and Asha, I guess you say the Philippines is your home. So this is your life's work and your life in the Philippines. Did you ever imagine that that would happen to a young woman from Canada?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how and where life takes you, but I definitely never imagined that I would be living in the Philippines. um, I didn't even intend to stay here long term. I was originally just supposed to be here for 1 year, and then I just sort of never left. But I do have some deep connections to the Philippines. Actually, my best friend growing up is Filipino, so I was exposed to Filipino culture since I was very young. So it is kind of funny that I did end up moving here and then living here full time.
Tell me about. people's idea of the Philippines. I mean, we're coming, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the president, was meeting with Donald Trump last week, and that made some news, not a lot. They were talking about tariffs, but I guess for a lot of people don't know the history of the Philippines in the U.S. It was a colony, and then it was, then it was an independent nation, and then the United States had a hand in the Marcos, the father of Ferdinand Marcos, the political regime of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. What do you want people to know about the Philippines now? How is it as a place to live for a non-Filipino like yourself?
I think to live here, like living anywhere, there are definitely good days and bad days. But one thing that is amazing about the Philippines is that people are so friendly and cheerful, and they're always smiling. There's always something to be happy about, and that is one quality that I really love about being here, is that people tend to be able to make the best out of every situation. Even if things, can be very difficult, because obviously the rate of poverty is quite high. People's optimism is really something to be celebrated, and really something that I don't think you can find anywhere else.
That's funny that you say that because during the Marcos time, Imelda Marcos used to say that about the people as, that regime did what it did to the country. But it is more than just a cliche. It's a reality. The Filipinos are friendly and they're optimistic, I think you'd have to say.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that.
And so, all right, the weather reports are looking good. I guess we're going to be optimistic and say that
Yes.
whatever the rains bring, you'll be able to help the Filipinos.
Yes, whatever happens, we are always ready to assist in the event of a natural disaster, but hopefully we're going to see continued sunny skies. And, we always hope that the best case situation is that we're prepared to do what needs to be done and to go out there and to help animals and their families. But at the same time, we're hoping for the best, and we always hope that's not needed.
Ashley Fruno, thank you very much for being with us. And once again, that Global Compassion Fund is behind your work as the director of the Animal Assistance Program. And if people want to help, all they have to do is go to the Global Compassion Fund on PETA.org.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Ashley, thank you very much. And I guess we should say, what do we say? Mabuhay, salamat.
Yes.
I say sorry.
Mabuhay.
All right. Thanks, Ashley. Nice talking to you again.
Thank you. Nice talking to you. Take care.
Ashley Fruno, based in the Philippines, helping animals there with PETA Asia, and all due to PETA's Global Compassion Fund. Go to PETA.org to find out more. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. Find me on X at Emil Amok, EMILAMOK, or see me at AMOK.com. Or find this podcast on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.